Hollywood's sweetheart, who survived a lifetime of struggles, stunned fans with an emotional meltdown on live TV. With tears streaming down her face, she hinted at stepping away from the spotlight, sparking wild rumors about her future. Did she just quit for good? And what pushed her to this breaking point? Stay with us to know the truth. A journey through Barrymore's turbulent childhood. Drew Barrymore was born into Hollywood royalty, but behind the glitz and glamour was a childhood filled with pain, neglect, and turmoil. From the moment she took her first steps, her life was already mapped out for her, a life in front of the camera, a life under the spotlight. But what should have been a magical journey of childhood wonder quickly turned into a nightmare, as she was thrown into an adult world far too soon. Drew's story begins in a family deeply rooted in the film industry. Her grandfather, John Barrymore, was one of the greatest actors of his time, and the Barrymore name carried prestige in Hollywood. She was born to John Drew Barrymore and Jade Barrymore, both of whom had their own struggles. Acting was in her blood, and it wasn't long before she was put in front of the camera. She was only 11 months old when she landed her first acting job in a dog food commercial. Before she could even understand what being an actress meant, she was already living that reality. Her breakthrough came at just 7 years old when she played the adorable and unforgettable Gertie in Steven Spielberg's iconic 1982 film, E.T. the Extraterrestrial. The movie became a global sensation, making Drew a household name almost overnight. But fame at such a young age came with a price. While other kids were going to school, playing in the park, and living carefree lives, Drew was attending Hollywood parties, surrounded by adults who treated her like one of their own. Without proper parental guidance, she was exposed to a world of excess, a world that no child should ever experience. At just 8 years old, she started going to nightclubs. She wasn't playing with dolls or having sleepovers with friends, she was partying with grown-ups, rubbing shoulders with celebrities, drinking alcohol, and living an adult lifestyle. It wasn't long before she was introduced to something even more dangerous, drugs. By the time she was 9, she had tried marijuana. By 10, she had moved on to cocaine. Her mother, Jade Barrymore, who should have been her protector, was the one taking her to these parties. Instead of shielding her daughter from the dark side of Hollywood, she exposed her to it. Whether it was out of ignorance, a desire to keep up with the fast-paced Hollywood life, or a misguided attempt at bonding, Jade failed to provide Drew with the guidance and discipline she desperately needed. By the time Drew was 11, she was already struggling with severe addiction. She wasn't just experimenting, she was dependent. Her nights were filled with reckless partying, and her days were spent trying to recover from the effects. This was the reality of a little girl who should have been in school, learning and growing in a safe environment. Instead, she was spiraling out of control, lost in a world she wasn't ready for. Her situation worsened when, at just 12 years old, she entered rehab for the first time. A child, not even a teenager yet, was already battling demons that many adults fail to overcome. She stayed at the facility for treatment, but like many addicts, she relapsed. Her addiction tightened its grip, and she continued down a dangerous path. At 13, her pain became too much to bear, and she attempted to take her own life. It was a cry for help, a desperate attempt to escape the suffocating chaos of her life. Her lowest moment led to another stint in rehab, but this time, she was sent to a mental health institution. She spent 18 months there, locked away from the outside world, trying to heal from the years of trauma, neglect, and substance abuse. By the time she was 14, she made a drastic decision: she divorced her parents. She was legally emancipated, which meant she was no longer under the custody or control of her mother. It was an extraordinary step for someone so young, but for Drew, it was necessary. The people who were supposed to protect her had failed her. She had to take control of her own life, even if she was still just a child. Her father, John Drew Barrymore, had been absent for most of her life. A troubled man himself, he struggled with alcoholism and was unable to provide her with the support she needed. Her mother, overwhelmed and unable to cope, had let her down. So, at 14, Drew was on her own, completely independent, yet still a child who needed love, guidance, and stability. The years of emotional neglect, substance abuse, and living like an adult when she was still a kid had left scars that would take a lifetime to heal. She had been thrust into a world that was too much for her, too soon. The innocence of childhood had been stolen from her, replaced by experiences that no young girl should ever have to endure. Drew Barrymore's childhood was not one of fairy tales and happy endings. It was a turbulent storm of fame, addiction, and heartbreak. While other children were playing outside and dreaming about their futures, she was fighting for her survival. The lights of Hollywood had shone brightly on her, but behind the glamour was a painful reality, one that nearly destroyed her before she even had the chance to grow up. Just like her childhood, which was full of suffering, Barrymore's love life was also filled with tension and heartache, stories so painful that might bring tears to your eyes. Traumatic love life of Barrymore. From whirlwind romances that burned out too quickly to devastating divorces that left her in the depths of despair, Barrymore's journey through love has been marked by pain, regret, and resilience. In 1994, Barrymore made headlines for a marriage that ended almost as quickly as it began. At just 19 years old, she tied the knot with British bar owner Jeremy Thomas. The two had only been dating for 6 weeks when they decided, at 4 a.m. after a night of partying, that they should get married. They found a 24-hour minister, and by 5:30 a.m., Barrymore was officially a wife. Dressed in combat boots, with a pit bull as her maid of honor, the ceremony had all the makings of a reckless decision. And she knew it. "I realized my mistake on the day I married him," Barrymore later admitted. Thomas, on the other hand, bluntly stated that he married her because she was cute. What might have felt like a wild, romantic adventure quickly turned into regret. Less than 3 weeks later, their marriage was over. It was an impulsive decision that foreshadowed the turbulence that would define Barrymore's future relationships. Barrymore's second marriage was no less chaotic. She met comedian Tom Green on the set of Charlie's Angels in 2000, and their relationship moved fast. They got engaged, had a fake wedding on Saturday Night Live, and officially tied the knot in July 2001. But what seemed like a fun, unconventional love story soon turned into a series of hardships. Not long after their wedding, disaster struck. A fire destroyed their 2-story home, causing $700,000 worth of damage. The couple barely escaped with their lives, saved only by their dog banging on their bedroom door. As if that wasn't enough, Green was diagnosed with testicular cancer, adding another layer of struggle to their already troubled marriage. By the end of 2001, it was over. Their marriage lasted just 163 days. The divorce was just as bizarre as their relationship. Barrymore and Green even split the rights to various film ideas. She kept 46 titles, including Never Been Kissed, while Green walked away with 52, including P. Diddy's Party. What started as a whirlwind romance ended in heartbreak, leaving Barrymore once again picking up the pieces of her life. After 2 failed marriages, Barrymore found love again with art consultant Will Kopelman. Unlike her previous relationships, this one seemed stable. They got married in 2012, and soon after, they started a family. Barrymore was determined to give her children the traditional upbringing she never had. In 2012, she welcomed her first daughter, Olive. 2 years later, she had her second child, Frankie. But with the joy of motherhood came a wave of darkness. After giving birth to Frankie in 2014, Barrymore experienced postpartum depression for the first time. "I didn't have postpartum the first time, so I didn't understand it," she admitted. "The second time, I was like, oh, whoa, I see what people talk about now. I really got under the cloud." The emotional weight was crushing. The actress who had survived a childhood of addiction and trauma now found herself battling a different kind of pain, one that made her feel disconnected and overwhelmed. She struggled to balance her career and motherhood, and despite trying to push through, cracks in her marriage started to show. Barrymore's marriage to Kopelman lasted almost 4 years, longer than her previous ones, but in 2016, it came to an end. Despite their efforts to make it work for their daughters, the relationship crumbled, leaving Barrymore devastated. She later admitted that her third divorce sent her into a dark and fearful place. "I felt like the biggest failure," she confessed in an interview. The woman who had fought so hard to overcome the demons of her past now found herself drowning in sadness once again. She had put acting on hold to raise her children, but after the divorce, she was forced to re-enter Hollywood. At the time, she wasn't looking for work, but when the Santa Clarita Diet came along, it became the project that helped her heal. Still, the pain of her broken family weighed on her heavily. She had dreamed of giving her children the stability she never had, but now, she felt like history was repeating itself. After the traumatic love life of Barrymore, she focused her whole attention on her career and raising her kids, but unfortunately, that too was filled with challenges and struggles. Career struggles and controversies. Drew Barrymore, once the poster child for Hollywood resilience, faced significant challenges in her later career. While she managed to reclaim her stardom after a turbulent childhood, the journey was far from smooth. Despite her early success, Barrymore struggled to maintain her place in an ever-changing industry, facing professional setbacks, business failures, and controversies that threatened to overshadow her hard-earned reputation. Barrymore's transition from a child star to a leading lady in romantic comedies brought her immense success. Films like 50 First Dates, Never Been Kissed, and Charlie's Angels cemented her place in Hollywood. However, by the late 2010s, the romantic comedy genre had begun to decline, leaving Barrymore in an awkward position. The scripts that once flooded her desk started to dry up, and she found herself struggling to secure leading roles. Her 2014 film Blended, a reunion with Adam Sandler, received mixed reviews and underperformed at the box office. Around the same time, Barrymore attempted to diversify her career by stepping into production and business ventures. She co-founded Flower Films, which had produced several of her successful projects, but the company faced challenges in keeping up with Hollywood's shifting landscape. Her return to television with Santa Clarita Diet in 2017 was a brief moment of success. The show, where Barrymore played a suburban mom-turned-zombie, was widely praised, and fans appreciated her comedic performance. However, the show was abruptly canceled after 3 seasons in 2019, leaving Barrymore without a solid project. Financially, she took a hit with her beauty and home goods brand, Flower Beauty. While it initially found success, competition in the cosmetics industry was fierce, and maintaining its relevance became a struggle. Many celebrity brands have thrived, but Barrymore's efforts to keep Flower Beauty afloat in a saturated market proved difficult. Barrymore's later years in Hollywood were also riddled with controversies. One of the most notable incidents was her decision to resume the Drew Barrymore show amid the 2023 Writers Guild of America strike. When Barrymore announced that her talk show would return without its striking writers, she faced intense backlash from the entertainment industry. Critics accused her of undermining the very writers who helped shape her career. Under immense pressure, she eventually reversed her decision and issued a public apology, but the damage to her reputation had already been done. Another controversy stemmed from her candid and often unconventional interviews. Barrymore, known for her open and emotional personality, was criticized for certain interactions on her talk show. Some found her interview style too intrusive, particularly when she was seen kneeling before guests like Brooke Shields, leading to accusations of insincerity. Additionally, Barrymore's personal views and social media presence sometimes landed her in hot water. Her attempts to stay relatable and down-to-earth occasionally backfired, with some critics calling her out for being tone-deaf on certain issues. She faced scrutiny over comments about relationships and self-growth that some perceived as out of touch with real-world struggles. Barrymore, who kept a strong composure throughout her life, most recently broke into tears on live TV. What actually happened that broke her? Let's find out. Barrymore broke in tears on live TV. Drew Barrymore, known for her resilience in the face of adversity, recently broke down in tears on live TV, sharing the heart-wrenching struggles of raising her daughters without a traditional family structure. The moment, raw and unfiltered, left audiences shaken as she reflected on her deep pain, past trauma, and the overwhelming burden of ensuring a stable life for her children. On the March 21st episode of The Drew Barrymore Show, the 50-year-old actress sat down with Moon Zappa, daughter of Frank Zappa, to discuss the challenges of modern parenting. What started as an insightful conversation quickly turned into an emotional outpouring as Barrymore opened up about the lasting impact of her divorce and the pain of breaking the family dynamic she had desperately longed to provide. Barrymore's voice trembled as she admitted that the dissolution of her marriage to Will Kopelman had shaken her to her core. Everything to me was very devastating and took me a long time to recover from if it wasn't in the traditional family dynamic that I swore I would do for my family because I did not grow up that way, she confessed. It was a confession that sent waves of empathy across her audience, many of whom have followed her tumultuous journey since childhood. Her words carried the weight of a past filled with instability. Barrymore shared haunting memories of growing up without parental support, moments that reinforced her determination to give her daughters, Olive and Frankie, a different life. A particularly painful recollection was of watching classmates call their parents when they were sick. I remember all the kids at school would go into the office to call their parents when they were sick, and I could never get a hold of anybody, she said, her eyes glistening with tears. And I was so jealous of those kids who would call and be like, "Mom, Dad, come pick me up." I just would sit there and be like, "What's that like?" Barrymore's overwhelming dedication to her daughters has been evident in her public statements. In an interview on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, she described them as her North Star, the guiding force that has reshaped her life. However, despite her best efforts, she admitted to struggling with confidence as a mother. If you don't grow up in a perfect way with a perfect family, you fear the blueprint and you go, I want to do things differently. I felt unconfident, like this was the stakes of my life, and it took a few years, honestly, to have that confidence, she revealed. Barrymore's honesty about her struggles has resonated with millions, yet her recent on-air breakdown has sparked rumors that she may be stepping away from the spotlight. Speculation is swirling that she has resigned from her talk show, claiming she wants to focus entirely on her daughters. While no official statement has been made, close sources suggest that Barrymore feels an urgent need to dedicate herself fully to her family, fearing that her past traumas might unconsciously affect her children. For someone who has battled demons from an early age, Barrymore's commitment to breaking the cycle of instability is deeply personal. She has openly shared how becoming a mother to daughters humbled her in ways she never expected. I'll never forget the moment because I realized I was put on this planet to raise girls. And that everything in my life was captured in a butterfly net to try and get this right, she said, emphasizing the enormous pressure she places on herself to provide the love and security she never had. Her vulnerability on live television has only added to the admiration fans have for her. The little girl who once longed for a mother's embrace is now a woman fiercely fighting to ensure her children never feel that same loneliness. However, the weight of that responsibility has taken its toll, leading many to believe that stepping away from her career might be her only option. Barrymore's decision, if true, would mark a significant turning point in her life. She has been in the public eye since she was an infant, navigating fame, addiction, failed relationships, and personal reinvention under the harsh scrutiny of the media. To finally choose herself and her children over her career would be the most powerful statement she has ever made. What are your thoughts on Barrymore's emotional words about parenthood? Share in the comments.